Hey everybody, it's John, otherwise known as a history buff. You can call me John. Here we are now going to be looking at a new video. We're reacting to a video, American Geography Explained for Europeans. That's right, it is my turn to put you on the spot, so let me know in the comments if this speaks to you and what your reaction is. I should know this stuff, but I guess we'll see. All right, this is part of my marathon of trying to create reaction videos. All right.
Europeans often like to give Americans a lot of grief for not being able to tell Slovenia from Slovakia,
No, not the people in my comment section.
but Europeans, how well do you know American geography? How well do you know the 50 states that united to form Hot Dog Land, and what parts of the country they belong to? And perhaps more importantly, where all the major cities are. Okay, so first, let's get all the states you probably already know of out of the way. Obviously, this is Florida, the big boy is Texas, long boy on the west coast is California, northwestern boy is Washington, which means in-betweener boy must be Oregon. Extra points for me if you already knew that because that's my home state.
All right, guys know that already so far? That's pretty easy, right?
And out here is Alaska and Hawaii. And you also know that New York must be somewhere around here.
Okay, I get that. If you guys get the first part of it, I completely understand that. That would be like Americans naming countries in Europe, I guess, to a certain extent. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, let's start in the Northeast. Starting at the top, this region comprising the states of Maine, New Hampshire, landlocked Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut is New England.
Right. This used to be from Massachusetts, this state that has Boston in it, and up, except for Vermont, used to be all Massachusetts.
New York is absolutely.
But that's New England. That's where they say they can't say they're ours, so they say "ka." Let's get in the car. If you guys know Matt Damon, okay, the actor, he's from New England. He's got like an accent that you can't quite, well, you can't quite place. But they're really known for their New England clam chowder. It's really good up there, and lobsters. Sorry, lobsters.
Not located here, though it is close by. Rather, this region is where you'll find cities like Boston, right here just above this elephant tusk looking thing that people call Cape Cod. Both Cape Cod and Boston are part of Massachusetts, this long state that goes down a bit east of Rhode Island, which is not an island but has a couple large islands. Just to the south you have this Long Island, which New Yorkers call Long Island, on account of it being Long Island. Why is New York suddenly relevant here? Because 2 of its 5 iconic boroughs are located right at the westernmost edge of the island. The city of New York City is part of the state of New York, which here is pinched in a bit by Connecticut and New Jersey. But as you go north, you find it borders Canada, which Pennsylvania does not, at least if you don't count maritime borders.
By the way, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I know, but it does.
This is where I live.
Hold Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. A mildly interesting fact about Pennsylvania is that it's actually landlocked. However, part of it lies in the Delaware River, which spills out into the.
Okay, I'm going to go with not necessarily true, because right up here, let me just go back real quick here.
It does hold Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. A mildly interesting fact about Pennsylvania is that it's actually landlocked. However,
Okay, this lower section of Philadelphia, and this curve up here is Delaware, goes straight down. There's Maryland over here. This is actually a port in a like a weird way. I don't know how else to explain it other than the Delaware River runs along here and it opens up into a bay, and they actually have pilots. So like not an airplane pilot, but a boat pilot that boards your.
Part of it lies in the Delaware River, which spills out into the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay, right around here in a place called Lewis, there's that's where the boat pilot boards your boat, and it will navigate the waterway up there for the boat captains and drop everything off in Philly. Across the river is Camden, there's Wilmington, Delaware, and down here is Dover. That's Joe Biden country.
Through Biden land, also
there you
known
go.
as Delaware. Now this whole region is called the Northeast.
Yes.
However, people sort of dispute whether it ends at the Mason-Dixon line or the Potomac River.
Mason-Dixon line is pretty much the line that's surveyed for I forget what the parallel is, but it's bottom of Pennsylvania, and it basically is the de facto line between the North and the South. The funny thing is there's a place called the Mid-Atlantic, which he's probably going to say, and that's another place.
Putting Maryland, Delaware, and the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., in a sort of limbo land between the Northeast and the Southeast, or the South, as it's more commonly known.
Yeah.
But perhaps a better definition might be to call this area the Mid-Atlantic, as many people already do.
They call that the Tidewater.
Yes, this is Washington, District of Columbia, which is not a part of Maryland or any state at all, but is a federally run district, as of the writing of this video at least. If you're watching sometime long after June 20,
your ancestors have been there. They've burned it.
2023 and this has since changed, leave a comment telling me how wrong I am for not being able to predict the future. Immediately to the south of DC is Virginia, which if you're traveling to DC is where the Pentagon and 2 of DC's 3 airports are located. Can you guess which state is to the west of Virginia? Then to the south of that are the 2 Carolinas, north and south. Mr. Beast, Stephen Colbert. Easy difference. Then you get to Georgia, home to Atlanta, where you'll almost certainly be connecting through if you're flying to this general area with Delta. Remember,
there you go.
They have a huge rivalry with Florida, which means that it would make sense for them to border Florida. Which they do. And they're not this place because that's Alabama, which is back to back with Mississippi like a couple in a bad marriage.
Dude, they are like twins, Alabama and Mississippi. It's if you ever drive through there, it's probably the that, and I guess this whole area is a very it's the poorest, I would say, generally speaking, the poorest area in the United States. I only say that because they put in X amount. Everyone puts in X amount to the government, federal government, and they take a lot more than they put in, and it's tough there.
Sort of like how Vermont and New Hampshire are 69. Also, you can remember that this is Mississippi because it's right on the Mississippi River.
Oh my God, this guy's funny.
The funky border. The Mississippi drains into the Gulf of Mexico through New Orleans in L-shaped Louisiana. The city named after a French city in a state named after a French king. Which one? I don't know. There were like 37 of them. Louisiana is also at the bottom of the Mile Man. What is the Mile Man? Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana.
So when we learn our states, we have to learn the man with the hat, and that's what it looks like. It's important to note that our states we do have 50 states and a central government, whereas if you look at it in terms of like Europe, modern day Europe, there's no necessarily not a strong central government, but the states or the countries hold more of the power, and it's just 2 ways of doing things.
Sort of looks like a guy wearing a chef's hat holding.
You guys probably lambast me for saying that, but it is kind of true with the European Union.
A pan, which is Tennessee, upon which is some good old Kentucky Fried itself. This brings us to the Midwest, with Ohio and Indiana, right in the heartland as America's most average states. I guess you remember that Indiana's narrow like an I and Ohio's wide like an O. Then to the north is Michigan, which sort of looks like an oven mitt that caught on fire and is losing a piece. To the west of that is Cheeseland, and to the south is Illinois, which is where you find Chicago. So if you look on an election map and see a state in what looks like the middle of nowhere but has a lot of electoral votes, that's because of Chicago.
Yeah.
But that's not the middle of nowhere.
I could narrate this dang thing.
This is the middle of nowhere. See, there's Minnesota and then Dakota, north and south. South of the Big Heads is Nebraska, which I sort of just remember because it has this little notch right here. Then there's Kansas, which is sort of just right in the middle. Oh, also Mr. Beat. Not Mr. Beast. He's in North Carolina.
Okay, they're getting into YouTube land here. There are other ways to remember this. There are great maps of like companies that come out of the states, and what's the biggest company per state.
Now remember, Mr. Beast, Mr. Beat. Go here to randomly win a car. Go here to learn about the American presidents. Oh, also, most of Kansas City is actually in Missouri, but that's okay because much of the St. Louis metro area is actually shared with Illinois. And then this is Oklahoma, the Panhandle state, because this thing.
So in Oklahoma is where President Andrew Jackson basically sent, or had sent, the Native Americans and created these reservation areas. They were called reservations, and like the Trail of Tears, so you'll study, maybe know about that. They basically made the Cherokee and other Indians walk in the winter all the way down here, escorted by the U.S. cavalry. We were extremely cruel. When we became a country, we were extremely cruel to the natives. As if most people who watch this are British, you guys in your history were much nicer than we were. And I don't want to say that that's not saying much, but everyone used them for the wars, like pre-1864, 1865. Everyone used the natives as an extra hand in a war, but at the end of every one of those wars, they pretty much lost, no matter what they did.
Alternatively, you can think of it as Texas's upside-down baseball cap. Now we get to the part of the country that was divided and named in a rush, probably because everyone was in a rush, for gold, over in California. Now, Texas has a long history with Mexico, being originally part of it and all that, so it would make sense if the state that bordered both Texas and Mexico was the one that was New Mexico. Fun fact, the only new state anywhere west of New York. North of that are the two square states of Colorado and Wyoming. Colorado is south and a bit to the east, which gives them a bit more flat land to build a massive city that is Denver. Well, massive for the area. Another way you can remember which is that Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming all share Yellowstone National Park. So if big guy is Montana and skinny guy is Idaho, then northerly square guy must be Wyoming.
This area right in here is growing very quickly for its beauty. A lot you'll find in Montana, in the Billings, Montana area, and in Idaho. A lot of skiing, great skiing. You find the rich basically from California and other places. They buy basically ranches up there and stuff like that, and they have a second home there. It's really beautiful, really beautiful. A lot of grassland.
Which by process of elimination must mean that the southern one is Colorado. The one with the bite taken out of it is Utah, the traditional conservative Mormon state, right next to its cultural opposite, Nevada, with Las Vegas right at its southernmost tip, right between California and Arizona. So if you live somewhere on the other side of the world and Drubinski ever drops by where you live, just remember that Arizona is this one.
And Paul McCartney has a house there. Yeah, and you can actually see it on the map. Pretty cool. He and Linda bought it a while back in Tucson, Arizona, and he still has it.
Right between
God rest her soul. Big Paul McCartney fan here.
California and New Mexico. Now a little bit of Pacific Northwest geography for you. There are two Vancouvers. If you say you're going to Vancouver, most people would assume you're talking about the one in Canada, more specifically in the province of British Columbia, which despite the names is not located on Vancouver Island. However, if you're somewhere like Portland, Oregon, of which Vancouver, Washington is a suburb, then you might want to add the Washington or British Columbia to clarify. However, we can also tell which one you mean by whether you're bringing a suitcase, or if you're slowly going crazy by the fact that you're going to Vancouver, Washington willingly. Now,
okay, just a thing, right? Portland, which is right next to it, is no drug laws, and it hasn't exactly gone the way everyone hoped.
Alaska and Hawaii should be pretty easy to tell. They're usually drawn in these little boxes at the bottom left because Alaska is so big that it could stretch from California to Florida at full size, and Hawaii is closer to Kiribati than any other state, and actually closer to Alaska than any other state. But we're not done yet, because this isn't a presidential election, therefore I think the territories deserve a say. These are not states, but rather territorial possessions with a significant amount of people living there, most of whom live in Puerto Rico, right here. Don't worry, most Americans probably wouldn't know which one it was either. But if you want a way to remember, if you start from Florida, Puerto Rico is the third island in this chain. Cuba, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico. Oh, also you can go further east and find the Virgin Islands, British and American.
And you come back non-virgin.
In the Pacific, meanwhile, we also have Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, and American Samoa, all forming the U.S. Minor Outlying Territories tab you check on Amazon. So there's the political geography of the United States. Plus a couple other countries, I guess. Hope that makes things a bit easier. If you want to test out your knowledge, fill in this blank map of the United States and send it to me as a reply on Twitter. Also, if you didn't quite get it on first glance, feel free to look through it again using the chapter markers I put in.
Okay. So, if you're in the States, if you live in the United States, you learn this in 4th grade. I know this because my son just learned it. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. It's a slow progression from, let's see if I can do it, from here. Well, I guess I can't do it like that. Slow progression from the Northeast to the Mississippi River. Actually, a very quick progression in the up to the 1840s or so. And then the population jumped out here. They found gold in 1849 in California. And this was still sort of like up in the air as to where the border was with you guys. As a matter of fact, we almost went to war with Great Britain in 1859. It was called the oh man, what was it called? It was called the Pig War. It was a war that actually was, they say that because it was started over a pig. It's sort of one of those situations that escalated and we had to de-escalate it. And then the Civil War showed up like 6 months later. And then the central part of America kind of filled in. And this is mostly farmland. Down here's more grazing land, especially in Texas. And that's pretty much the way the states grew. This we stole, not stole, but we started a war with Mexico. Yeah, we totally started a war with Mexico, and then we took this. Texas is the only state that was its own country, and then became a state. I would also argue that Hawaii was an island nation, and then we kind of did what we did. So, yeah, and then everyone's background is different because in Florida you have a lot of Spanish tendencies. This is before modern day immigration and stuff. Louisiana's French, Pennsylvania Germans or Pennsylvania Dutch. That's me. Kannst du mich fangen? That's what we used to say. Can he catch flies? It's funny stuff, I guess. New York came from the Dutch, the Massachusetts, New England area, Puritans, and also south of Philadelphia areas, Quakers, William Penn from the King, the Carolinas and Virginia, Georgia. That's all English settled. But believe it or not, more Germans came over in the history of the United States than English. It's just that English had been the predominant language. So a lot of Swedish in the 1920s, and after World War I, we got a lot of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the breakup countries now, Slovenia and stuff like that. So that's pretty much it. How did you do? Did you know this? Did you not know this? Because I don't know. I'm just curious. I get a lot of comments that say, you Americans don't know anything. Well, how'd you do in the 50 states of America? All right, guys, if you like this, please subscribe. Consider subscribing. Please like this and share it out. Don't forget there's some merch. If you want to join a membership, we can have a one-on-one chat. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.